What is up, everybody? Welcome back to MLB Swing for the Fences here on Sunday, August 3rd. We've got a 6-game DraftKings baseball slate, 11-game FanDuel. Big discrepancy between the two sites, but we'll mostly focus on the DraftKings slate as we always do. You guys know me by now. I'm Draft Sheet, and as usual, joined by Third and Schlong here on Sunday morning. Bryce, how you doing here on Sunday?
Not too bad. Just another weekend here before football, trying to close out the season strong before we get some real Sunday shows back in our lives.
Yeah, just over a month now till the return of football. We're obviously looking forward to that. But so what does that make? Maybe 3 or 4 more of these Sunday morning baseball shows. We'll do our best to get to the bottom of the slate, pick the winners. I think we're going to agree a pretty tough, ugly DraftKings slate. We'll discuss some FanDuel as we go along here throughout the slate. It is very, very different given better pitching options on FanDuel and then, of course, the Coors Field game as well. So really 2 entirely different slates. But we'll start off talking DK, and we do start off in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. for the Brewers and the Nationals. Pretty mild weather here. Around 80 degrees, some winds blowing in, should play pretty neutral overall. 2 righties here. Brad Lord going for the Nationals, who's had some pretty solid starts for the Nationals, but overall, certainly a pitcher you want to target against. And then Logan Henderson, Brewers rookie, actually the most expensive pitcher on the entire DK slate, which I think says more about the slate itself than Logan Henderson, but he has pitched very well when given an opportunity. He's made 4 starts at the big league level, all 4 of which were really good, but they were way back in May, kind of a crowded rotation situation. He's pitched well in the minor leagues, has pitched well when given a chance at the big league level. So, yeah, maybe you can make a case for him as the most expensive pitcher on the slate, a decent matchup against the Nationals. And yeah, I think the Brewers stack is pretty interesting against Lord and the Nationals bullpen. Bryce, what'd you see here in our first game of the afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, we don't get Mizorowski here. We get Henderson instead. Henderson, I mean, neither we're going to throw very deep into the game. I'm expecting 5 innings out of Henderson here, probably. Yeah. His outs prop 14.5, slight juice on the over, so they'll probably try and get him 5 if they can. I don't hate it just because of how bad the rest of the pitching is. Like normally at 9,800, Henderson would just be like a straight up pass for me. But there's not like tons of expensive hitters you want to spend up on, unless you want to play the Cubs here. So, he's hitting some lineups for me. I don't think it's the worst play. I do prefer like a Chris Bassett type of play to him, just because I think he has more upside by throwing more innings here. But yeah, Lord is one of the few pitchers I don't want anything to do with here.
No.
There's not many guys I would click off on this slate, and he's one of them here. So no Lord for me. I don't mind the Milwaukee bats. My only issue with them is how popular they're going to be. Just because, you saw him yesterday coming around 30% on a similar type of slate, but that's when people needed money to spend on pitching. With Skeens with Skubal and Wheeler. So they actually might not be quite as chalky as you think here, but they're so cheap. Like there's only one bat over 4K. Like Contreras is 3.9, Turane's 3.7. Everyone else is like 3K and below. So it's a super cheap 3-man and 5-man. I totally get playing them. It's just kind of an ownership battle here for me. Nationals, I think are a fine stack as well. I don't think Henderson comes in that highly owned, so I probably prefer to get like some leverage on like a weirder type of stack here. But I do like them a decent amount in 3-mans. Like Abrams would obviously always play well in 3-mans. with like a +1 type of deal. So I think you're going to have money to spend. Those are like types of luxury spends that you can get here that you wouldn't be able to get on a normal slate.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. Brewers do look good to me. You do get that terrible Nationals bullpen behind Brad Lord, who probably only makes it 5 innings here. So yeah, and I mean with Henderson, I think on a normal slate, Bryce, like you wouldn't consider him playing on the, or at least I wouldn't on the big FanDuel slate, and even on a normal slate, you wouldn't really consider him at 9,800, like you said, maybe 5 innings out of him. But that said, I mean, I would play on the DraftKings slate. I would play any two pitchers for 15 fantasy points if I could just kind of go ahead and lock that in right now. It's just, I think it's going to be tough sledding for most of these pitchers. They're just not very good. Most of them don't even have good matchups. So I do think Henderson is a totally reasonable play. And then yeah, Milwaukee looks good to me. They're hitting the ball recently. I mean, Andrew Vaughn out of nowhere has been awesome. And yeah, most of the Milwaukee guys look good. So I'm with you. I think Milwaukee makes for a good stack. And then Henderson, he's not at the top of my list, but there's plenty of value, right? Like you can fit Henderson and the Brewers in there right away if you want to. I think a decent way to start your lineup. I'm mostly off of the Nationals, but wouldn't be surprised if they had a good day either. All those lefties against the rookie pitchers. So yeah, I'm with you. Mostly Brewers here, but I do think you could play this game either way. Individual bats, it would be mostly the top of these lineups that I'd be looking at, really on both sides. I think that 1 through 5 for the Brewers does look pretty good. Turang, Contreras, Vaughn, Yelich, and Isaac Collins. I think a pretty good way to go to kick off this slate. People playing on FanDuel, I don't think I'd be getting to either of these stacks over there or pitchers. So this game would mostly be a cross-off, which honestly, the first 6 games on the slate are not nearly as good as the last 5 on the FanDuel slate. So for those playing over on the duel today, maybe backload a little bit could be a good way to go. We'll go to Kansas City and the Blue Jays up next. This one in Toronto. 2 veteran and frankly pretty similar right-handed pitchers going here. Chris Bassett, Seth Lugo, 2 guys who you can expect to go a little bit deeper in the games. You can hope for 6+ innings out of both these guys in Toronto. Both of them have a relatively tough strikeout matchup. Neither the Blue Jays nor the Royals swing and miss very often. And, neither of these guys are great strikeout pitchers anyway. So I assume the K props are somewhere around maybe 4.5 for these guys. And again, at 9K, 8,700 for Bassett, not great options, but like we've said, and probably will say again on this show, on DraftKings, you're not really, it's almost unrealistic to hope for like 25 plus out of any pitchers. So I do think Bassett and Lugo I think they kind of got to both be on the short list. I do prefer Bassett slightly between the two, but I think it's relatively close. And I don't think I'm going to a ton of bats in this game, even on the short DK slate. What about you, though, Schlong? What are you looking at with the Royals and the Blue Jays here?
I think these are 2 of the safer pitchers. You mentioned it, don't love the upside on these guys, but it's hard to love the upside on any of these pitchers here. At least these guys will throw deeper into a game if they're pitching well. And, that's kind of how they can run into strikeouts. If they end up going like 7+ innings, they're just actually going to face more batters. K props are sitting at 4.5 on both. I do prefer Bassett in this matchup at home to Lugo, but, I think ownership will reflect that. I don't really love picking on either of these teams unless it's like a strikeout type of pitcher, just because like they're very heavy contact teams, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Bats I don't love. I don't mind 3-mans on either team, like with the good players here, to get some leverage, because I do think that these pitchers are going to be owned, especially Bassett. So yeah, I would start every Royal stack with Witt. There's no reason not to play him in your stacks today. Like you're kind of looking for places to spend money. Mm-hmm. And then same goes with Vladdy on the Blue Jays side here. Him and Bichette for me. And then it would probably be Witt and Vinny on the Royals side for me. would be where I start my 5-mans and 3-mans here. So, yeah, don't. I'm only playing one team today, and I'm not going to get to this game very much. I think I'm probably going to pass on pitching and hitting here. So, yeah, that just kind of shows you this game kind of encompasses what the rest of the slate is here. There's just not a ton to love, but I think there's spots to pick on in other places.
Yeah, it's kind of the DraftKings slate. It's kind of hard to get excited for the mass multi-entry on this slate. It's kind of hard to come up with one team that you're confident in. Never mind 150. So I'm with you, playing 3 teams on DraftKings, but they're all. It's just kind of tough sledding. I'm with you, Bassett over Lugo, choosing between the two, and then I think you can do better for hitting on the slate, but this is one of those slates, Bryce, where there's like almost nothing that you could tell me that wins the slate that would really shock me. There's just not that many dominant pitchers, and seems just very flat in general, right? I mean, even if you look at the Sabre projected ownership for pitchers for a 6-game slate, I mean, they've got like 8 pitchers, 15% or higher, which is just completely absurd for such a small slate. So it is going to be very spread out at pitching, and I think the offense in general too. We're both Bassett a little bit better, but yeah, hard to get too excited about this game. And yeah, do you open up your pricing? I mean, if you're only playing a couple lineups, maybe not, but in general, this slate would be one where maybe you allow for leaving more salary on the table just when there's so much wide open. I think
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just not really anything to spend on. I think that Witt looks decent as like a weirder type of spend here. The chalky spends are going to be like Jose Ramirez and the Mets, I would guess. So like Witt and the Cubs would be like the weird types of spends for me.
Yeah.
I do like getting like hitters like that in that are going to come in lower that are obviously good hitters. So I kind of open up salary when I need more diversity. And, I definitely want diversity at pitching here just because, I don't really feel that confident in anyone. And if anyone does, either they know something or they're lying to you just because, it's hard for anybody to feel good about pitching on this. So yeah, my one-offs in general are typically expensive players, and not loosening up pricing gives you more of the expensive one-offs, like a Kyle Tucker or a Bobby Witt type of guy. So I do kind of prefer that, and I don't play tons of 5-3s in the MME. It's almost all 5-2-1. So it's pretty hard to be duped even on slates like this if you're playing 5-2-1.
Makes sense. Let's move it to the next game on the slate. We've got the Twins and the Guardians in Cleveland here. Jose Urena making his return to the big leagues. Last pitched a couple months ago, back on June 5th. He has never really been good, and especially recently been in the minor leagues. Twins obviously traded a ton of pitching and other pieces at the deadline, especially their bullpen. Just absolutely kind of gutted it, which I do think makes the Guardians, I'm not going to say sneaky. I assume they'll be somewhat popular today, but they are one of my favorite stacks. Urena, you can definitely play hitters from both sides of the plate against him. He does have, over his career, some decent splits where lefties hit him better, which is nice for this Guardians team because I believe we have 8 left-handed hitters in the lineup for the Guardians. Only Gabriel Arias there in the 6 hole, swinging from the right side. So I think a pretty good spot for these Guardians bats, especially considering the state of the Twins bullpen right now, and obviously the matchup against Urena is good itself. Guardians, I think they don't say this very often, but they might be my favorite stack on this slate. And then on the other side, you've got the lefty Joey Cantillo going for the Guardians. I'm somewhat of a fan of Cantillo. He does miss his fair share of bats. I don't think, though, he's going to be, a guy who regularly gives you 6+ innings, probably looking at 5, maybe 6 for Cantillo. But, man, this Twins lineup right now, Bryce, has to be one to target against. We got several lefties in the lineup. Their best hitters are Jeffers and Royce Lewis. Pretty tough sledding for this Twins team overall. Cantillo is cheap at 7,400. And again, not a super inspiring option, but I think he's got a chance to compete with any pitchers today, especially if you like some of the more expensive bats, which, won't be everybody, but some people maybe want to get in the Mets or the Cubs or Bobby Witts of the world. I do think Cantillo is a pretty good option at 7,400. I do think he's my favorite cheap pitching option on the slate. No interest in Urania for me. And then I do like these Cleveland bats as well. So mostly Guardians action for me in this one. What about you, Bryce? Where'd you end up with the Guardians and the Twins here?
Yeah. Didn't really think I'd be saying this morning, but Cantillo is my favorite pitcher today.
Yeah.
So that pretty much shows you how good of a pitching slate it is. You mentioned how bad this Twins team has been. They showed a bit of life yesterday, but this is going to be a pretty dead team post deadline. It's just a very bad lineup. It's more of a pick on the Twins as opposed to playing into a really good pitcher in Cantillo or something. But
no Buxton either, which is obviously by far their biggest threat, especially against the lefty. So it's a pretty good spot for Cantillo.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to throw super deep into this game. I do think he has some strikeout upside here. K-prop's sitting at 5.5. Saying like he's my favorite pitcher is also like relative, because I wouldn't go absolutely nuts playing him or anything, just because any one of these guys can get blown up or put up a great game, but he's the one I feel best in here. So I'm going to be playing him on my main team here. Cleveland lefties, as you mentioned, I think are in a really good spot against Urania. Don't really want anything to do with Urania here. Obviously, Jose Ramirez should be in all of your Cleveland stacks here. We're looking for spend bats, and I would probably consider him my favorite expensive bat on this slate. I think it's a really good spot for him to succeed. And then, the rest of them don't break the bank either, obviously. I think Kwan is in play. Schneerman's cheap. Manzardo, I think, is a pretty high upside play. Bo Naylor, top of the order guys are just so easy to fit here. Them and the Brewers are probably my two favorite stacks on the slate. So, yeah, I would let it rip on Cleveland here. I definitely like their side of the ball.
Yeah, I'm with you. All Cleveland for me. Cantillo, yeah, right there with my favorite pitchers on the slate. Would you consider him on FanDuel? He's 7,200 over there. Just, I don't think he gets through 6 very often. You've got the quality start. I think he's.
I wouldn't.
No, yeah, I think. I'll just be honest.
I don't really play cheap pitching on FanDuel that often, just because pricing is so soft. And there's, not to get too into it, but I mean, we have DeGrom on the slate. You have Cease on the slate in not like an awful matchup. I would just kind of stick to those two probably.
That's what I was going to say.
I think I think DraftKings is always the better site to get a little wilder pitching, because you need 2 of them. FanDuel, I'm really looking for a win and a quality start.
Yep.
DraftKings, I'm looking for an efficient start. And I think the Twins can provide that more than there are definitely scenarios where Cantillo can go 6 and get a quality start, but his outs props 15.5 juiced under. It seems like a 5-inning type of start to me.
Yeah, I came to the same conclusion. I think it's essentially a 2-pitcher slate on FanDuel with DeGrom leading the way, who I do have a decent bit ahead of Cease, but there is a price discount there. I think you can play either guy, but I think it's just pretty much those two for people playing the main slate on FanDuel. So 100% with you there. Just not quite worth it. It's just so much harder to make up, a mediocre pitching performance in your FanDuel lineup than it is on DraftKings due to the scoring changes, needing two of them, pricing, all that stuff. So yeah, Cantillo, good option on DraftKings. Probably not doing it on FanDuel, but I do think on DK, especially if you like the expensive bats, pretty good way to go with Joey Cantillo, who I do expect to pitch at least decently well, get some strikeouts in this matchup against a very watered down Minnesota Twins lineup. We'll go to New York next for the Giants and the Mets. Giants going with rookie lefty Carson Whisenhunt, made his debut back on the 28th. So yeah, he's on regular schedule 5 days ago. Wasn't terrible in that start, but certainly wasn't great either. At home against the Pirates, maybe hope for more. Did make it 5 innings, 3 strikeouts, 4 earned runs in that one. His minor league numbers look pretty pedestrian to me. I don't think he's in play here at 7,500. And I do think the Mets stack certainly is, especially for those who like some of the cheaper pitching, can get them in there today with the full stack if you want to. And then Frankie Montas going for the Mets, coming off a rough start against the Padres. Had been pretty decent before that. He's a decent arm, I think, and one, that could give you 5 or 6 innings if things go his way. Certainly not a dangerous Giants lineup. So, yeah, I think Montas is in play. A lot of lefties in that lineup for San Francisco, which hurts Montas' strikeout upside, in my opinion, just a little bit, but still. He is on the short list for me. I do have him behind Cantillo, kind of at that mid 7K price tag range. But I like Montas a little bit. I'm out on Whisenhunt. I think I'm out on the Giants bats for the most part. So another one that's kind of lopsided for me, Shlong, where it's mostly Mets here. I think Montas is solid. And then I think the Mets are one of the higher upside stacks of the day, especially against a rookie pitcher who seems like, maybe more apt to have an implosion type start than some of these other veteran types. So, yeah, I like the Mets quite a bit here. Where'd you end up with Giants and Mets?
100% lockstep with you here. Whisenhunt, not my cup of tea today for 7,500. I would much rather, if you want to play like one of these weird younger pitchers, it's not hard to find the 2K to get to like a Logan Henderson. And I straight up prefer Montas and Cantillo. And I would rank them Cantillo over Montas, over Whisenhunt. So, yeah, no Whisenhunt for me today. Montas, I think pretty much everyone knows who he is at this point. He's not a pitcher that's going to like blow the doors off you or a hitter, but he's pretty cheap in a decent matchup, and we're really looking for pitching here. So it's more we're trying to find reasons to play him than not play him. Like if there was good pitching on the slate, this guy wouldn't really make my pool. Like where Cantillo would make my pool on pretty much any type of slate, just because he's playing the Twins. I'd probably go like 30 to 40% Montas here type of deal. And he would be in consideration for like a main team. If I was playing 3, he'd definitely make it on one of the teams, probably not 2, but if you like him, then yeah, he could definitely be on 2 of them. As I said, we're looking for reasons to play these guys as to not play these guys. Mets spends, I think, are some of the better spends on the slate. Lindor, Soto, Alonso, and Nemo's not that cheap either, so you can add him to the spends as well. Pretty easy to get to like a small stack or a 5-man here. There's no team that you're really priced out of today. So, yeah, they would fall behind the Brewers and probably the Guardians for me, but I think they're going to come in lower owned just because they're more expensive. So I think you do get a slight ownership discount here going with the Mets. And I definitely do prefer getting at least 3 of the top 4 bats when you're stacking them.
Yeah, we'll see if we can find something we disagree about. But so far, pretty much on the same page. Montas looks solid. Mets, I think, are okay, but I do also have them behind the Guardians. I think I've got them behind the Cubs as well. That's who they're kind of most similar to, right?
They're definitely most similar to the Cubs here because they're expensive. It's not a great hitting environment at home. Like the wind's blowing in. Obviously, Wrigley, that matters more.
And against the rookie pitcher. I mean, they're really similar, frankly. The pricing,
Yeah.
positions, all of it. Yeah. So I do prefer the Cubs, but yeah, no problem with the Mets. Would certainly want exposure to them if playing a bunch of lineups. And yeah, Montas, again, unexciting option, but I do think he should keep you in the hunt, right? With maybe 15 fantasy points, which we think should be enough to compete for GPPs from your pitchers today.
Yeah, if you're getting 15 to 20, that's all you're looking for here.
Yep.
I'm not sure what the odds are on someone getting over 20. It's probably decent, but if you're getting over 20, you're rolling. So
and it's hard to predict which one of these guys is going to be. So
yeah,
you're trying to get that 15 and hope for 20 plus, basically.
Yeah, but even if you're getting 15, you only have to make up 5 points at bats.
Exactly.
I don't see anyone getting 30 here. I think the only guys who really would be like a Bassett, a Lugo, a Cantillo type of deal. Bassett and Lugo just because they can throw like super deep into the game. Other guys more for their strikeout upside, but yeah, it's kind of a tough click type of deal today.
For sure, yeah. Bassett and Lugo in that game, I think, are really the only ones who could go like 7 or 8 innings if things really go their way. If every batted ball they give up goes to a fielder, those obviously the teams will let those pitchers go as their veteran arms. Yeah, let's go to Miami for the next game on the slate. Interesting pitching matchup here, I think. We've got Edward Cabrera going for the Marlins. Has pitched really well recently. Talented arm, gets to pitch at home. Gets, of course, a dangerous Yankees lineup that has a lot of left-handed power, which isn't super ideal for Cabrera. It does also have a lot of strikeouts in it. They've got they're Sunday morning in Miami. I don't know. I could see this Yankees team, who've kind of been faltering recently without Judge anyway. I wouldn't be shocked if they kind of just didn't play well today, this Yankees team. So I do like Edward Cabrera a little bit here at 8K, one of my favorite pitchers on the slate. Again, it's not a high bar to clear, but I do like him quite a bit. On the Yankee side, we'll see Luis Gil making his MLB season debut for Luis Gil. Did pitch well last year. Is he coming back from a suspension or injury? I think one of the two. Injured list. Yeah, he was on the injured list. Did get up to 75 pitches in his last rehab outing. So I think you could see 85, 90 pitches from Luis Gil. It's hard to know what to expect from him. I guess he's got to be in play on this slate, 8,600. I don't think I'm going to get to him on my 3 teams, but I wouldn't be shocked. I do prefer Cabrera in the same game. I don't think I'm going to a ton of bats here, but we just don't know what to expect from Luis Gil coming back. So I do think that combination in the middle, Stowers and Agustin Ramirez, has quite a bit of potential, probably at low ownership. Like I said, I'm in on the Cabrera train. Of course, if you want to stack against him with the Yankees bats, I don't think that's the craziest idea either. But personally, I do lean with Edward Cabrera as my favorite overall play in this game. And yeah, looks like the field on him too. Sabres got him right up there with Cantillo as one of the highest owned pitchers on the slate, which again says more about the slate than it does Cabrera himself. What about you, Schlong? Where'd you end up with the Yankees and the Marlins here?
You've seen these two teams play some crazy games this series. I think just because of that, people are going to kind of gravitate towards hitters here a little more than they should, but I prefer arms. Didn't think I'd be recommending Heel here, but I don't think he's like the absolute worst play. Strikeout props 4.5. Absolutely no one's going to play him off the IL. I don't imagine. So, even getting to like 15-20% on him, I think will be over. And, I don't think it's the worst like type of play just because, I think Bassett gets all the ownership kind of in the mid-8s type of price range. That being said, I do prefer Cabrera like you do. Not a good matchup, obviously, against the Yankees here, but, I'd say he's the most talented arm on the slate.
Yeah.
For sure. So, I mean, anytime that happens and it's a bad pitching slate, I think you always want exposure to the best arm here, even in a bad matchup. He wouldn't be like a cash type of pitcher for me, but he's definitely a type of guy I'd want to be over on in tournaments. So, yeah, probably like a 40% type of Edward Cabrera deal. I would rank the pitching Cantillo 1, Cabrera 2, Montas 3 up top, and then Bassett and Lugo, and then probably Heel. To be honest, maybe Henderson above Heel, but something along those lines. It's just as we've said for the at least 69th time this show. It's really ugly up there, but I like Cabrera. I don't hate Heel, and I don't love bats in this game. So Yankees a little harder to choose like one-off type of deals here, but they obviously have a decent amount of bats with individual upside, and then what Stowers has been doing for the Marlins is pretty incredible. I would definitely include him in all my Marlins stacks or small stacks.
Yeah, I think a good game to pick off one-off. Stowers, Ramirez for the Marlins side, and then the lefty Yankee power. There's a lot of it. It does, I think, profile decently well against Cabrera. It's just both of us like Cabrera. I do have him as the second best pitching option on the slate as well. Especially, we mentioned which guys could give you 25 or 30. Lugo, Bassett. I'll throw Cabrera in there. I think he could get the strikeouts here against this Yankees team to put up a decently big score. More risk with him, I think, but I do like Cabrera the more we talk about it. So probably going to end up on my main team as well. Let's get to the last game of the slate. We'll talk a little FanDuel after we talk about the Cubs and the Orioles. This one in Wrigley Field. We got the wind blowing in here, which should have this playing pitcher friendly today. Conrad going for the Cubs. He's a little bit in the Bassett Lugo mode. He's not as good as those guys, but kind of a veteran right-handed arm, lower strikeout guy who gets hit hard by lefty bats, which is a lot of this Orioles lineup. They've got Holiday, Henderson, Rushman, all in that top four. But man, this lineup for the Orioles really falls off after the top four. So yeah, Rhea, I guess he looks maybe like a better option than I was thinking he would as we came into the slate. So a little bit of interest in him, I guess. I don't play him often, but I do think he looks okay, at least on this slate. Orioles would go with Brandon Young, who's been hit very hard this year. ERA of close to 7, a whip of close to 1.7. It's been a rough ride for Mr. Young. And, despite the pitcher-friendly weather, the Cubs are my favorite stack if you're spending up, which you certainly can. There's enough money to get there. And, they're expensive. Bush, Tucker, Suzuki, PCA. You can go down to the bottom of this lineup. Looks okay to me, too. And, Brandon Young just not any good. Can play hitters from either side of the plate against him. I think this is a pretty good spot for the Cubs. Bad bullpen behind Brandon Young as well. Orioles, another team that's sold at the deadline and has a slightly weakened bullpen compared to what they had. So in on the Cubs here, they are my favorite stack if we're spending up. Can include these guys as one-offs too. What about you, Bryce? What do you see Baltimore and Chicago?
I just wish the weather was better, and I'd kind of be all over this game
Yeah.
for hitting, but it's not. And I do think you have to consider Rhea at 6.9K. You know, not a recommendation I love making, but I think he kind of foots the bill for someone you'd want. Like you compared him to Bassett. I think that's a very apt comparison here. He's just 2K cheaper. I would prefer Bassett in a vacuum, like raw score wise, but it still is the difference between like I don't know, 2K hitter. So yeah, I wouldn't go nuts on Ray or anything. I don't think he's an exceptionally high upside pitcher. Obviously, Orioles lineup didn't really take as many hits as the bullpen. Like they have a couple guys in here that, like Jeremiah Jackson, et cetera, instead of like a Cedric Mullins. I don't think is that big of a downgrade. Don't hate the lefties as like weird one-offs here, like Henderson, Holiday, Rutschman. Kind of where I'm sitting at, maybe a Colton Cowser type of deal for like small stacks and one-offs. It's a little tough when the wind's blowing in at Wrigley to get these guys clicked on, but yeah. Brandon Young, I don't want anything to do with. There's only a couple of pitchers I'm clicking off the slate, and he's one of them. Cubs bats. I think we might disagree on them a little bit. I don't really love them here. It's just tough hitting weather, as you said, but it's a really nice matchup. And the Cubs always find them. I always find them doing well in weird spots.
That's what I'm saying. You have to, even if you go back to like April and May, they broke the slate on a lot of frankly, a lot worse
because
hitting.
They run a lot too. Yeah. So like even if they're not hitting home runs, you might be able to get there in steals. Admittedly, don't know what a great matchup Brandon Young is for runners.
Unfortunately, Mr. Young has not allowed one single steal the entire season.
Oh, there you go.
Not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't love the Cubs, but as we've said, they've broken the slate on like weird slates like this. I don't really think anyone plays them. I think people will play the Mets over them, and I do prefer the Mets as like as my expensive stack. But I get playing the Cubs. So
the no steals thing from Brand. I mean, maybe they'll run anyway. You never know, but that's kind of enough for me to maybe shift to different options because that with the wind blowing in, that's kind of how the Cubs could really get there, and now it's probably off the table for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like pricing is so soft. I would probably play like Cubs 3-mans because you can still make you can pretty much click a Cubs 3-man even with the good ones and still get like a good rest of your team. If you're clicking a Cubs 5-man, it gets a little dicey. So I would definitely prefer them in smaller stacks.
For people that like to get fancy out there, like myself, this is a good slate to. You don't need the full stack, right? Like you're kind of home run hunting in the.
You can go with
with
a weirder type of construction. There are a lot of bad bullpens.
Jose and Gunnar and Stowers, right? Like some crazy high upside build.
I think like a 5-1-1-1 type of deal would be totally fine. I still do prefer the 5-man, even on slates like this where it's a little bit harder to pick out because like when these teams do get to the bullpens, like you want to get to the bad bullpen pitchers. And some of them only have bad bullpen guys now. Like they don't have Cleveland, for example, doesn't have the front end of their bullpen. But I'm not really playing any Twins here. More just an example. But yeah, I'm still gonna play 5 stacks, but I think you can definitely be looser. Like you don't have to play a 5-3. You don't like have to play a 5-2-1. I'll probably end up playing mainly 5-2-1s, but yeah. On shorter slates, you can reduce the 5 to a 4. Just to get a little more variation in your lineups. Like, I think that's fine here. It's a 6-game slate. It's not the most enticing slate, and you're kind of looking for reasons to play guys as opposed to not playing guys.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. That's the 6 DraftKings games. We'll go over, kind of our favorite plays there. Let's talk very briefly about the FanDuel slate, which is really entirely different. We went over pitching there already, and I think both of us are going to stand by the DeGrom/Dylan Cease. Clearly the best way to go over on FanDuel. DeGrom in particular in Seattle, I think, is the pitcher that I'll be playing on my FanDuel team. And then obviously the other big difference besides the pitching is Coors Field is on the slate. We've talked about these early games. Most of them aren't particularly friendly to hitting in terms of the weather and the wind and all that. Coors is going to play very nice today. And most people are going to go to Pittsburgh, right? I think someone asked about O'Neill Cruz being like 40, 50% owned or something like that. The pricing is so soft, right? You can fit DeGrom in 4 Pirates. I know it's still the Pirates.
The Pirates are too cheap as they've been all series. But you also get 2 other good games out west. If the Angels game or this Athletics game was on the DraftKings slate, I would be kind of game stacking that. It's not elite hitting weather on the East Coast, but it's great on the West Coast. Mid-80s, winds blowing out, not tons, but at both stadiums. And obviously we've seen both stadiums play pretty hitter friendly this year. I think the Angels stack, Rockies stack. I would even be fine with a White Sox stack here. Yeah, I would just kind of, you might not get these lineups before lock. I would just kind of I'm not going to not play any Brewers or anything like that, but load up on the late games here for sure. I would really load up on DeGrom at pitcher. I think he's the clear number 1 here, and try and get a little weirder at hitter. But yeah.
Yeah, we do have the Pirates lineup, which looks
like we have the Pirates and the Diamondbacks lineup. I saw. But yeah, you might not get the rest of them on a Sunday, which is why DraftKings does not include these games. Normally, I would just be all right, screw these 4 p.m. games, get them out of here. I don't really want to be sitting on my computer all day, but today they're a little nice to have.
Yeah, and people playing on FanDuel. Honestly, a pretty good strategy is start your slate with the Pittsburgh-Colorado game. You got 4 games after that, including the game in Sacramento for the A's and the Diamondbacks, and go from there. See what the lineups entail, and you'll get just with the slate perhaps locking and not all the lineups out. Maybe you'll get some lower ownership on some of these guys in the later games. Let's go back over our favorite plays on the DraftKings slate, though. We'll start at pitching. I think we might have the same or similar answer to this. What's your favorite pitching combination on DraftKings? It's obviously a tough one, but we do got to roll with 2 guys on each lineup. Who's your favorite way to go with, Schlong?
Go with Cantillo, and I think you'll go Cabrera, so I'm going to go Montas.
You are correct. Cantillo and Cabrera, my favorite way to go. Really the only guys that I don't think are even worth considering. I got 4. Wisenhunt, Brandon Young, Lord, and Urania. Those 4 are the ones I would not consider at all personally on DraftKings. I think everybody else is at least a somewhat reasonable play, but narrowing it down to 2, you're right. I've got a Cantillo for the Guardians and Cabrera for the Marlins. Those are the high strikeout per plate appearance guys who I think could put up a surprisingly big score if things go their way. Both guys, it could go south for them for sure, but that is my preferred combination. Stacks price, give us 2 stacks you're looking at on the slate.
I'll go with the Brewers, and I'll go with the Guardians. Weird stack today would be the Royals mini.
Yeah, I'm once again similar. I do think the Brewers look the best to me. I think they're going to be popular, but you get the matchup against Brad Lord, you get the bad bullpen on the road, so you get 9 innings and a team that's been hitting it pretty well recently. So Brewers number 1 for me. Man, it's hard to find really any way. I do like the Orioles lefties a little bit at the top of the lineup. Holiday, Henderson, Rushman. You can include Westberg in there if you want, hitting second. He's 5K against Conrad, who does get hit hard by lefties. But yeah, the Brewers the one standing out, and I do think it's a pretty good slate to go with some more one-offs and kind of mix it up a little bit, maybe more than we typically would. I do like the Guardians quite a bit against Urania and the Twins bullpen as well. Finally, Bryce, give us a home run call. Who's going deep for the people today?
Let's get a little weird here. Bobby Witt against Bassett.
Bobby Witt. I like it. I will go with my guy Kyle Stowers, who I think will be pretty low owned against Luis Hill and the Yankees. He's got more than enough power to get it out of any stadium, including his own in Miami. That'll do it for the show. Appreciate everybody watching here on Sunday morning. Show will be back tomorrow, normal time. Game Log Mondays, me, Big T, and JT. Should be a fun show as always. Yeah, good luck on your Sunday lineups to everybody. For Third and Schlong, I'm Draft Cheat. We're out of here.